Let's make an exchange, shall we? An exchange of memories.
If you're anything like me, then you were absolutely entranced by this trailer, and I don't blame you. It showed many Aeons and paths that we've yet to see in-game. Oh, and it's also voiced by Arryn Zech. But besides that, we get to see the character behind this entrancing narration, and she is known as Black Swan. Today, we'll not only go over Black Swan herself, but we will break down every last word she said. Now, if you've not seen this trailer yet, I do highly recommend that you leave this video, go and watch that, and then come back. And just as a slight warning, there will be soft spoilers discussed in this video, specifically for the LeFou, but nothing major. One thing I do want to bring to importance is the title, Fables about the Stars. And the last line that Black Swan reads, "Countless shooting stars streak the sky tonight. Should you choose the right one, it will carry your wish to thousands of distant worlds," while holding this book. If we take a look at the quote for Akavili in the databank, we get a very similar quote and says that it is from a book called Fables of the Stars by Adrian Smith. This leads me to believe that most of the narration from Black Swan is her reading from this book, however with her own outlook on things. But with that out of the way, let's begin with Black Swan herself. At first, I thought she was a Stellaron hunter due to the cards that she has laid out on the table are the same that the cards that Kafka uses in the Interstellar trailer, and also because her name was similar to Silverwolf in terms of style, that being a color and then an animal, but as we know, Kafka and Blade do not follow that naming style, so I scrapped that idea. So let's take a closer look. She sits in a dark lit room with crystal candles and yellow shining stars hanging from the ceiling, both of which give us a hint at which Aeon she herself follows. We learned Black Swan's name through the Bilibili post of the trailer, and along with it she had a title, which roughly translates into Rememberer, Memory Keeper, or Memo Keeper. Does that ring a bell? It should, as they are one of the parties that are associated with the Garden of Recollection. The Memo Keepers seek out important memories and attempt to trade memories or bargain with them. In fact, if you remember, we actually have a Memo Keeper on the Express. It's the messenger that arrived along with the Forgotten Hall. This can give a glimpse into the fact that Black Swan is a Memo Keeper herself, making her a follower of Fully. To further back up this claim, she starts the video off by asking for an exchange of memories, which the messenger does as well. More evidence is that on the desk she has crystal candles, which is the symbol of Fully buffs in the Simulated Universe game mode, so we can assume that candles are in fact connected in some way, shape, or form. Furthermore, the heart shape that she has on her chest looks similar to how a kaleidoscope appears, which fits perfectly since the first encounter we had with Fully in the Simulated Universe describes Fully as appearing as a ton of kaleidoscopes. As for the stars she has dangling from her ceiling, it appears that these are full of lost essence or lost crystals, which funny enough can be obtained through the Forgotten Hall, which is made by the Garden of Recollection. For the final connection for her being associated with Fully being the biggest and yet most arguable one, the cards that she uses and has laid out across her desk. Those with keen eyes may have noticed that these cards are actually light cones that we can use in-game, as we can see the card Defense on the table. Also, like mentioned before, with Kafka using these cards, we get a better look at seeing that these are light cones. Light cones are Garden of Recollection technology. This is one of the first things we learn in the game once we meet Arlen. These cards do play in a much larger picture though, because they can be seen as the equivalent of tarot cards, and each Aeon does seem to fall into similarities of their own tarot card. But if we go too deep into that, it'll be a video on its own. As we move on to the Aeons of the video, I was going to describe each Aeon they show and their factions, but I decided to keep that out due to it bloating the video too much. And I'll leave that for a future series that I plan on making called Who's That Faction? But, anyway. I will also be leaving out the little poems that they have below each of the Aeons because they pretty much just describe the Aeon's path. However, I will be bringing up one in particular, but when we get there, we'll get there.
Let's make an exchange, shall we? An exchange of memories.
This line, like I mentioned before, seems to be in reference to her being a Memo Keeper and wanting to exchange memories with us, the Trailblazer.
I dreamed of a ray of light, of a crystal chalice. The light that shone from that crystal spoke to me. Listen to the parable of the stars.
This line, tied to this specific area, 100% makes me believe that anytime someone is glanced upon by an Aeon, they are brought to this area, or one that looks like it. As both when we were glanced upon by Nanook on the space station, as well as Qlipoth on Yarilo, we were brought into this area, as mentioned by our MC when we arrived to see Qlipoth. So whoever is the narrator of this book, whether that actually be Adrian Smith himself or someone he knew, seemed to have been glanced on by an Aeon, and that Aeon told them a sort of timeline that we see Black Swan narrate through.
The nameless one, the pathless one, arrived from the edge of the wilderness, clad in stellar radiance.
This line seems very much intended for the MC, as we are a part of the Nameless, which is the faction that follows Alcavilli and is a part of the Express, and we're also pathless. Sure, we do end up gaining paths, but we do not follow a specific path, so in essence, we're pathless. The clad in stellar radiance is in reference to the fact that we have the Stellaron in our body, and gives a, quote, stellar radiance.
Go now, march unwaveringly into solar wind. At the end, you will return to my embrace, but march towards the light.
I did take some leniency with this line and made the connection that by march into solar wind, she means march into the path of the Aeons. And the reason I came to that conclusion is because solar winds are created by an outward expansion of plasma when the sun's gravity can no longer hold it. The energy that powers Aeons and their paths is imaginary energy, so I take this line as their paths are the sort of plasma energy that the imaginary itself couldn't hold up, so it just turned itself into a path. And that path is the solar winds, or light, as when she says march towards the light, she holds up the card and we begin with Nanook and their path. As for at the end you'll return to my embrace, I'm not 100% on. It is a possibility that since our MC clearly had a past, since we can remember Kafka when we wake up, that we may have known whichever Aeon is saying these things to the narrator. However, this book was written before the MC, so it's kind of hard to assume that it's solely based on the MC. It could be that the Aeon that mentioned these fables is related to the finality, as they are said to be telling a prophecy that is yet to come, but we will come back to that later. So, back on track. If you noticed, the order of the Aeons that Black Swan is reading to us is not in the order that we encounter them. If that were the case, then it would have gone Nanook and then Qlipoth. So, if this is about the MC, then why is the order different? Well, without going on too much of a tangent, it could be possible that this order is the order that the Stellaron hunters want to introduce us to, as they first brought Nanook, and then the next time they actually intervened themselves, were being put on the path of Lon, the hunt, at the LeFou. It could be possible that the next time we see the Stellaron hunters, we may be set on the path of abundance.
Yet that light began to burn, piercing through the clouds as a golden death. Towers crumbled, and the people fled, for the sun was soon to set and meet with vicious destruction.
Nanook, the Aeon of Destruction. As you know, we met Nanook in the game during the Space Station arc, and it is our first path we stride as the MC. Now, as for what Black Swan said, the beginning isn't very cryptic, as the light that began to burn is in reference to Nanook's flames, and piercing through the clouds as a golden death is about Nanook's whopping size and golden features. What is interesting, though, is towers crumbled and people fled, because Nanook is in line with the Tower tarot card. And just to tie that into the game, the first Lycone we receive is Collapsing Sky, which shows a tower collapsing just like the tower in the tarot card. And when you overlay Nanook on the tarot card, he lines up exactly as the tower. And in the tarot card, the tower crumbles as people flee. Well, in this case jump, but same difference. The last line, "For the sun was soon to set and meet with vicious destruction," is just in talks of his scorching heat like the sun and the destruction that he brings anywhere he goes. Also, one thing I do want to mention is that in the background, we do actually get the symbols of the factions that follow the Aeons. We have known the factions for a while, but this is the first time we get to see the actual icons. The one on the left is the Antimatter Legion, and the one on the right is the Annihilation Gang.
But be not dismayed, O child of the world. The Luck's arrow will descend to purge the wicked abominations. You must follow the traces left behind in the storm's wake.
This is in reference to how Lon, the Aeon of the Hunt, used the stars as an arrow and gravity as a bowstring to hunt down the abominations of the Aeon Yaoshi, which are also known as Marastruck. Just like how Lon sent an arrow down to split the Ambrosial Arbor in half on the Jingxiao LeFou, saving them from the brink of destruction. Just like she told us to follow into the light of Nanook, she wants us to follow the path left behind by Lon to either gain knowledge or understanding of their actions.
The Celestial One guards their secrets, plotting out the roots that connect all things. But they are silent, like a shroud of mist at the center of the universe. Listen to the silence, and you will know where the stars are resting.
Did you catch that? No? Here, let me play it again, but listen closely to the beeping in the background.
Listen to the silence, and you will know where the stars are resting.
Yep, that's Morse code, baby. It translates into 42, which for those that don't know, it is a reference to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where a supercomputer was asked the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. Its answer was 42. This has become a pretty popular answer to the meaning of life question, and is even in one of the dialogue options with Herta when asked what the meaning of life is. I would also like to shout out Smug here, as they are the only other person that I saw notice the Morse code part of this trailer, and while they did make a video on it, they did end up removing it, but huge props, because I only saw them notice it besides myself. As for what Black Swan said, it's all about Nous' functions. Nous is a supercomputer that sits quietly in the corner of the universe, solving equations while trying to find the answer of the universe. Nous does not share the information they find, and it is common practice for those in the Genius Society to keep quiet as well. However, some members have disclosed their findings. Like I said before, I am going to keep the factions for their own video. However, if you are interested in who these pictures are, it's actually members of the Genius Society. From left to right, it's member number 76, Screwlum, member number 22, Aiden, member number 1, Xandar 1 Kuwabara, who is rumored to have been the one to create Nous, member number 56, Elias Salas, and finally, member number 4, Polka Kakamint, who is known for killing many of the other members and has the title Lord of Silence. If you're interested in the Genius Society, I do actually already have a video that goes into a deep dive about them and the 15 known members out of the 84 that we know.
Let your staff strike the earth, they say. Once and again. The tender sprouts will grow to the sky, and the dew that falls from their branches will rid you of sickness and poison.
This is going to be the first time I bring up the passage under the Aeon, as others are pretty self-explanatory, but this one is odd. As many of you may know, the Aeons do not go by specified pronouns, but instead commonly go by they/them. So this passage does not seem to be about the Aeon itself, but about a follower of Yaoshi. Yaoshi brings eternal life and health, so it's possible that this passage is related to someone that was seeking eternal life through Yaoshi to accumulate infinite wisdom. However, that didn't end up being the case, and instead they had to deal with immortality, as the ones that they love, who didn't have immortality, died out, never to return. As for the lines given about Yaoshi, it's all in relation to how the ambrosial arbor will grow to the sky, and the dew that falls from its branches, which in this case is the fruits of the arbor, will rid you of sickness and grant immortality.
Blindfold your eyes, they say, that the approaching darkness may strike no fear in you. Let it not burden your soul, nor numb your stride.
The text given about 9 seems to be related to how 9 will make the weight of the world feel like a massive burden and will cause you to find the meaning of everything as worthless and nothingness. So she gives a warning to blindfold your eyes so that the weight will not burden your soul or numb your stride.
Stick gates, they say, and lift up the tablets of lapis. Read them aloud. Let the fire that forged the bricks and the ones that laid the walls' foundations be known.
Okay, this one is super cool, because when I googled lapis tablets, it was brought to my attention that the Mesopotamian civilization would use lapis tablets to record information, and the Mesopotamian civilization is the oldest recorded civilization that we know of, and Qlipoth is listed as the oldest Aeon. Well, that is if it wasn't a lie. We do learn that the IPC has lied about the past of Qlipoth, and there are recordings of Aeons that existed before Qlipoth, but we'll leave that for the Aeon video.
Then they say, "Oh, you who have reached the end, enter into the paradise that envelops all. Join this great choir and feast. Listen to the beating of billions upon billions of hearts, holding you in their embrace."
As for why the voice changed into the harmony for Xipe, I have no clue. It could be that they are the Aeon that spoke through the chalice to the narrator, but to be honest, it doesn't make sense for it to be Xipe. This could just be a cool thing that they did for showing a new Aeon design that we haven't seen before, but only time will tell. As for the line Black Swan spoke, it's just in reference to the fact that Xipe wants to bring everyone and everything together in harmony, and fun fact, the design for Xipe is so perfect. Xipe is an amalgamation of ideas and multiple eons, and Xipe ended up absorbing Inna, the Order, due to their paths being similar, but Xipe being stronger. The amalgamation of ideas is shown by the puzzle pieces, while the multiple faces shows the facts that they are multiple eons coming together in harmony for a common goal. Okay, please stick with me here. This last section they decided to go absolutely hog wild on, and it goes very fast. So I'm going to show the entire segment first, and then we will break it down.
Look upon the courtesan's extravagance, the mariner's intemperance. Listen to the infant in the mirror, the waves as they enter the dream, the tipping of the balance, the shapeless prince, and finally, measure the world against yourself, and take all such things to heart. This is the path you should walk, they say.
It starts off with Aha, the elation, which is the Aeon that fully divulges in its own selfish desires for laughter and entertainment. This fits with the subtitles given in the video, as it says to look upon the courtesan's extravagance, and has hedonism listed as well, which is the belief that pleasure is the highest aim for life. It then goes to Ouroboros, the Veracity, which is the last known Leviathan that drifts across space, eating endless worlds. As the drinker of worlds and unsatisfied devourer, the text and the subtitles again make perfect sense. A sailor that drifts across with its intemperance of eating worlds, or, in other words, its gluttony, which is then shown with its teeth that eat the screen. We then cut to Idrilla the Beauty. I'm going to be honest, I'm not quite sure as to why the title lists Idrilla as the end of all things. However, the closest thing I could find to tie that into the part of infant in the mirror is that in Greece, it's believed that babies shouldn't be allowed to look in the mirror, as it would trap their soul, never to be freed again. And one of the factions that follow Idrilla is the Mirror Holders, who go around showing a mirror to those they wish to have join. The waves, or flapping wings, is in reference to Tazaronth, the propagation. The flapping wings is due to the fact that Tazaronth is a swarm of eating insects, and it is stated that the sound of the flapping waves sound like a chant of Tazaronth's name. As they enter the dream is about Mythos the Enigmata, which believes that the universe has no end, and that the truth is a fevered dream. The consciousness tag seems to be in reference to the fact that Mythos conjured the fog of thought. The tipping of the balance, Samsara, is talking about Hu, the equilibrium, as they are the Aeon that tries to keep the scales of the universe equal, keeping everything in balance. The Samsara here seems to be listed as it's a part of the karmic cycle, and that entails the concept of an action and its effects or consequences. As in the game, when we grow in power, Hu raises the power of the enemies to make it equal. Cause and effect. The Shapeless Prince is talking about Terminus the Finality, which we can see up in the top right corner. It's mentioned in the loading screen for Terminus that they are an apparition, which fits the description of Shapeless Prince, and the subtext is listed as against the current, which seems to be related to the fact that Terminus moves backward in time, against the current, or normal flow of time, which they do actually kind of show here in the trailer, as a lot of the times when the finality is shown, it's reversed. Finally, we have Fully the Remembrance. It's interesting that they have Fully behind the express here, and then directly mention Akavili right after. This could be due to the fact that Fully may know the truth behind the disappearance of Akavili because they seek to have the memories and knowledge of every event and record them in history. The subtitles when speaking about Akavili and connecting the worlds for departing is all about Akavili, and how the goal of the express was to connect the worlds and allow for communication between all. Akavili was a trailblazer, and I know many take this as the MC is Akavili, and trust me, I do believe in that theory too. However, I will keep that entire conversation for a theory video on its own, because it will be way too long to add in here. Finally, we have a final shot of Black Swan as they close the book and read the line mentioned from the Fables of the Stars that we saw on Akavili's description. The line itself is pretty interesting, as it's stated in the description for the Nameless that the Express would disguise itself as a shooting star, and the fact that the Express seeks to travel from world to world, connecting them. It could be seen that if you pick the right star, or in this case the Express, it will carry your wish to the distant worlds. Well, that covers about pretty much everything. If you have any theories or know of anything that I missed, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to discuss what others think about this trailer and what it could mean for the future of the game. And if you're interested in more crack theories, I recommend jumping over to my theory about March 7th could be a potential creation of Fully. And with that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you Trailblazers in the next one.